Welcome to this week's edition of Skip Scoop. And, no secret. We're a little bit of a skid right now, but we're going to get that thing going. Got some big games this weekend and get back on track. But let's deal with the task at hand. I think we have some show issues where Guillermo/Bucky has he's been replaced this week, and we searched long and hard. We went through tons of resumes to find a suitable replacement for him. But I think we found one of the best. And in all seriousness, I am thrilled today. It happened to work out. This is by chance, but fans, you are the lucky recipients of today's episode of Skip Scoop. I want to introduce to you someone who's not a stranger to ASU baseball, one of the all-time greats, not just at ASU, but in the major leagues, and Rick Monday. So thank you. And you feel pressure sitting in for Bucky?
No, not really pressure, but Bucky got optioned out. Basically, he got sent to the minor leagues today.
And thank God.
No, thanks for the invitation, because you know what's nice is that yes, it's a different stadium, but we actually played our games.
That's right.
When University of Arizona came into town, we played at Municipal Stadium, and during the regionals, we played here as well. So this is a familiar place.
What do you think of it? What do you think of it?
Well, what you've done with it, and what Arizona State has done with it. The fact you can see it as you drive past on Van Buren. You know exactly what it is, and you know exactly this is the new home of the Sun Devils in baseball. To me, I got to tell you, I smiled when I drove by this morning. I had heard about it, but I saw it, and you've done a great job. And then a chance to talk to some of your players down below, just say hello to them.
They don't know how lucky they
It's
are.
nice to be back home. And again, my apologies to Bucky, but he'll be back in the seat soon.
And we were talking earlier, and I think this is interesting. I've heard it tossed around since I've been here. The first home run in Phoenix Municipal Stadium was
by Willie Mays, hit it halfway up the dirt berm in left field. And that was the opening day. And I was a freshman. And as it turns out, people could not find enough parking. So what they wound up doing, Tracy, they actually just parked their cars on Van Buren and just left them there. It was a nightmare, but they left them there. There were people with their fingers through the gates and through the fence watching the game, but it was Willie Mays that hit the first one.
Yeah, I've heard
and
that.
there's been many since that time.
I didn't have any verification of that until just now, so Willie Mays was the first one to hit it in there. So you've had some really interesting things happening for you, not only in the immediate future, and we'll get to that later, but we're going to do, and as you well know, being unveiled, the flag burning incident, which was a significant incident and situation in your playing. So I was always curious to find out how that all happened, how it went down, and get your take on it, because we're going to honor that this year. As you know, we're going to do a throwback uniform, which we may allow Bucky to get back in there, but we're going to celebrate that event, and I'd love to hear your take on that.
First of all, my thanks to you, the baseball program at Arizona State University. When you first told me about it, to be honest with you, I ran in and I told my wife, Barbara Lee, I said right away, I'm thrilled and I'm humbled because there's so much that I have in my life based on where it began here at Arizona State University with Coach Bobby Winkles at the time and all of the teammates. They were more than just teammates. We were family members, and it's nice to still be a part of that family. And the fact that you're going to recognize, and this is 40 years after the event took place, where two guys were trying to run on the field, desecrate the very symbol that represents the rights and freedoms that all of us enjoy in this country of ours. The fact that I was geographically close enough that Sunday afternoon at Dodger Stadium to stop them as they were dousing the flag with lighter fluid. The wind blew the first match out, and James Rourke was able to take the photo of them attempting to burn the flag. He was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize.
I'm not sure what he's doing out there. It looks like he's going to burn a flag, and Rick Monday runs and takes it away from him. And so Monday, I think a guy was going to set fire to the American flag. Can you imagine that?
The nice thing is that I asked for that flag after the court case. They were fined $80 apiece, put on 2 years probation.
Who are they? Where are they?
There was somebody that has followed up on it and asked me if I wanted the information. I said, no, not really. because I thought then what they were trying to do was absolutely and totally wrong. I still feel that same way, and we're 40 years into it now. That took place in 1976. The nice thing is that I asked for that flag. After the court case, I was presented that flag by Al Campanis, who was the general manager of the Dodgers when the Dodgers came into Chicago, because at the time I was playing for the Cubs. And my wife and I have been able to raise now, with that very symbol that these guys were trying to desecrate that afternoon, we have raised a great deal of money for military charities and families.
Didn't know that.
And so the irony of it is that something that they were trying to desecrate is now still working to try and help those that need the help, those that have never asked why we're sending someone to the military, or their families for that matter. We're able to help them with that very symbol. And the fact that Arizona State is going to recognize that moment, for me, it's not about what I did. For me, it's recognizing what all of us need to understand is that we have a lot of rights and freedoms in this country. In order for us to enjoy those rights and freedoms, someone had to stand up and raise their hand. That particular Sunday afternoon, I was close enough to raise my hand.
And I've seen the video too, and it just what I just can't imagine is you're out there, you're playing in a baseball game, and you see what's unfolding in front of you, and then little thought, I'm sure, into what it would ultimately mean. Did you give him a little business?
No, I didn't. But I could tell. It's like someone comes into your office here. You can tell if something is a little bit out of whack. Well, my office at the time was center field. We happened to be at Dodger Stadium that afternoon, and I heard something off to my right in center field. And I turn, and as two guys come on, you don't know if it's because they're trying to win a bet with somebody, if they've had too much to drink, if they don't like you and they want to tell you what it is, because and they weren't streaking, because it used to be streakers go across the field. That was not the case, and that was not the issue. But it was the way I was raised, that what they were doing was wrong. Yes, it was reinforced by 6 years in the United States Marine Corps Reserves. So the fact that they were stopped, and now we're 40 years past that particular point, the realization that we are where we are because of military and sacrifices and people that did raise their hand and take a moment, we all have a great deal to be grateful for.
Well, I think the least we can do, and is when we were thinking about memorable moments and what we wanted to honor with regard to ASU baseball, I think that honestly was the first thing we thought of. So happy to do it, and it was interesting to hear the inside of that. And so thank you for what you did, and I think you're going to be really proud of the uniform. And we'll take a look at Bucky right here modeling this, as gross as that may be. So don't hold that against him.
No, Bucky is fine. An Arizona State uniform to me has always had special appeal. Even more so
even
now that
Bucky,
even though Bucky was kind of wearing. You asked me, in fact, if I had watched any of these. I said, yeah, I did yesterday. So I kind of get the flow of what's going on. But Bucky folks will be back the next edition, we guarantee.
So check out Bucky in the uniform.
Oh, hey guys, just rocking my Rick Monday jersey.
Bucky's so hot right now. Bucky is so hot. Oh, yes, Bucky.
All right, now back after, again, seeing Bucky in uniform was not. Actually, we had Bucky he went shirtless in one episode, and we got all kinds of emails and text messages saying, please don't do that again. So I wonder what the reaction is going to be after seeing Bucky in uniform. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, and I hope that you don't mind, because I've got you here, and I got to ask you this. One of the other things that I think is really unique to you, and I don't think a lot of people know this, that you were the first player selected when they did the Major League draft.
In the very first draft, 1965. Because Tracy, if we go back, the draft had not been in place. So out of high school, in fact, I had about 8 teams that were trying to sign me to a contract at the time out of Santa Monica High School in California. And I actually got a letter in the mail from the Dodgers. The Dodgers had a scout that headed up what was called the Dodger rookie teams. And there was an invitation to go to a series of 3 consecutive weekends that you would try out for this team. It was comprised of recently graduated high school seniors.
So this was after your high school.
It was after high school. I had already graduated. And this coach at the time was a scout for the Dodgers. His name was Tommy Lasorda. Well, I wound up playing for it at the major league level. But
He's
Tommy,
he's not a bad coach.
not a bad guy, but the series of tryouts, and I made that team. So I was able to go ahead and play. Tommy actually had my mother and I to dinner one night. She had pen in hand 3 different times, put the pen down and said, Tommy, Rick is 17, he's just out of high school. He needs to go to college. And if he can make it at 17, he can make it at 19, he can make it at 21. So at least 2 years minimum to at least get the foundation of an education. So if he gets injured, he can play. So Tommy took the contract back. He crossed off the number, put bigger numbers in it. So it happened 3 different times.
But so your mom, the master.
And my mother
negotiator.
was not negotiating. She finally put the pen down and said, Tommy, I'll guarantee you one thing. Let Rick go to college, and I'll guarantee when he's ready to go, we'll sign with the Dodgers. Well, it was about 2 days later, they were playing a game again with the Dodger rookies, that there was a gentleman in the stands that came out to watch me play, Bobby Winkles, who was the head coach at Arizona State. My mother sat with Coach Winkles in the stands. I played the game. Game is over. I go up to see my mom and I give her a hug and she says, you need to talk to this man, pointing to Bobby Winkles. Well, the rest was history. I sat down and talked to Coach Winkles for about 15 minutes. I knew where I wanted to go. That was right here at Arizona State University. So it was really through the Dodgers that I was exposed to Arizona State because I was thinking about going to a couple of other schools at the time. And after sitting down and listening to Coach Winkles and talk about the program at Arizona State, that's where I decided to go. And then the first round pick, nobody knew how it was going to work out.
So was it that time? Was it? I know you had freshman ball.
Mhm.
So when were you eligible to be drafted, or how did that work?
When I was here as a freshman, you had to play on the freshman team. You could not play varsity. So it was my sophomore year. The draft is coming up in June. And in June, we were at Rosenblatt Stadium in the College World Series. In fact, the evening of the draft, we were sitting in the stands in uniform, waiting for a game that was being played to end so we could play our game that night and maybe move on to the semifinals. And the draft came on. Coach Winkles had told Sal Bando and Duffy Dyer and I, there were 8 guys off that team, by the way, 65 that were drafted.
Not a bad squad.
And he told us, look, we're going to kind of protect you. We've got a big game. Here comes the media. And Coach Winkles says, guys, we have a game to play here in a few minutes. Please, after the game, we can talk. So that's how we found out. Charlie Finley with the A's flew in. Sal and I had our photos taken with Charlie Finley, I think that next night. And that's how it really started.
So the first selection was
First selection was me by the Kansas City A's.
okay. So the
And then
Kansas
Sal
City.
was drafted, I think, a couple of rounds after that. And the irony of it is that 2 guys that played on a College World Championship team wind up playing in the Major League together.
And that is the draft as we know it today.
And a sidelight, too, is that there are actually a couple of attorneys came to me and said, look, what baseball is trying to do is not right, and we can test this on the market, and we can probably get you even a larger bonus. And I said, how long would that take? He said, oh, it might take 3 or 4 years in the court system. I said, no, we're not interested. So eventually we signed, and then Sal and I, it was the next year that we played not quite 1 full season at the minor league level that Sal and I were called up together to the big leagues.
So
And what is kind of nice is you're in the big leagues, but all the while we represented Arizona State baseball.
I love it. And see, and I had absolute. I mean, I knew, and I'd heard all that, but I got to tell you, folks, for me to be sitting here and sitting next to the real live Rick Monday and hearing that is an unbelievable thrill. And I feel lucky that you came back and spending some time with us today, but we caught you on the shooting a skip scoop. This might be
Yeah.
the best episode ever.
Well, publicly, I just want to say is that I've first chance that we've had a chance to meet eyeball to eyeball. You've given me a tour of facilities here. You're going to do well here, and I hope the people understand that. And I made a comment to you is, look, when you come in as a new coach, it's going to take you like 3 years to be able to get the entire program, but to see what the facilities are here, to see how you interact with everybody else, you're going to do very, very well. And I tell you, as a former alum, could not be happier And I know one of the projects that you have is to try and get those of us that have been honored enough to play in a Sun Devil uniform back here and get involved. Well, all you have to do is pick up the phone. I'm available.
All right. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming, and this was way more than I expected. So, again, you can see the glow on my face, and I don't know how we're going to top this episode. So, thanks, and we'll see you again next week on this Skip Scoop.